A great warrior isn't always going to make a good teacher or even leader. I mean, if you look at our own history, there's more often than not when you break down the character and how they were in the general public, whether it was kings, whether it was leaders, right? There's a pretty common trend where sometimes the warrior got lucky, but more often than not, it turned out having a great soldier lead a country or, be a great king doesn't usually work out. So even though this episode and Edvard, in terms of like his inability to properly teach because he just assumes people should know what he knows, and if they don't, then therefore they're just not trying hard enough. I thought it was great because if you really break down the four generals in terms of how our boy has actually went out of his way to aid them, it's not like he's doing anything revolutionary. It's not like he's doing anything super complex. It all kind of boils down to basic teaching methods, whether it's someone who takes on all the work for herself and doesn't delegate and separate the tasks at hand to people who could ease the tension and stuff. A girl who really just needed a good push in order to understand how to properly manage her troops, sort of a thing. You have a man who just really, could be the most cold and ruthless killer ever, but just actually needed a bit more social skills. And then it comes down to the strongest, or at the very least, in my opinion, who kind of perceives himself as the strongest of the four. And it's not that, his men are bad or they're lazy, it's that they have a bad teacher. As we clearly see at the end of the episode, they respect the hell out of this dude. It's not like the respect's not there, it's not like they hate him. But when you have someone who doesn't understand what it's like to lose, and the one person he did lose, it's not like like he's criticizing the men for losing against Leo, right? Because obviously he himself did. But this Chimera is a pretty great example because for him, how the hell do you not know? Hit the back of its legs and go for his head. They weren't trained. They don't know. And it's up to the leader of them to teach them that. So I thought it was a pretty brilliant way to humiliate someone in such a way in terms of how he was humiliating the men that he wanted to rise up to the occasion. By using this mech that is stronger than a Chimera, the fact that it can literally kill him. I mean, we've seen how hard his skin was. We saw his attempted suicide. He was breaking knives and daggers left and right. And the fact that this laser could actually kill him, and it wasn't until he was taught in the middle of that battle, and then, having that humiliation of being like, how dare you, you say you're this great general, you couldn't even realize how to handle a basic bot, like what's wrong with you? And I thought that was so great because I think that's what makes the show so good, is that it has all the fantasy kind of almost like hero elements you're used to. Powerful hero who could probably one-shot most foes. I mean, the dude literally deflected a giant laser blast that took away like an eighth of a mountain, right? There's no argument to be made that Leo's not OP. But the fact that rather than just rushing into more battles or things like that, it's the rebuilding of this army that he defeated. And rather than it just being like he needs to go defeat other foes, he actually has to teach these generals what it means to truly lead their individual stations. Some immediately were doing better than others, but even overworking, like in the case of the very first one, right? I mean, it's something that can really drag them down. I think that's what I like about it, is that it makes everything feel human. And very quickly it was being established that a demon lord who wasn't just out to kill humans for the sake of it. Like, it's a more human approach to that dynamic. And I think to see stuff like that, in terms of how they're making them feel just like they're anyone else, they're a bit different, but ultimately they're not here to just kill for the sake of it. Like, they have their own goals. Unfortunately for the humans, those goals seemingly reside in the human section of the world, and they're not just going to give it up, so they have to fight for what they need, right? They want to have prosperity, they want to have lands that they can harvest on, but I love the fact that Leo, the fact that he clearly doesn't want to destroy humanity, right? That's obviously clear at this point. And the fact that even the Demon Lord herself doesn't want to do it, and the fact that he's now really teaching them to act a bit more, straight and narrow, it's just great to see, in my opinion, because this was an episode that I've been excited for since we knew that the format was going to be one episode for each of the generals. Sure, we had the Demon Lord Tea Party / feast and stuff like that, but ultimately, that was the formula that they were going off of ever since the second general got introduced as having her own episode. So to see it finally come in, it was better than I was hoping, because one thing that I was hoping for was a battle of some sort. My assumption was that, yes, Leo would end up training him, but I thought it would be like he would defeat him himself in battle. And even though I wasn't expecting exactly the way he kind of humiliated / opened his eyes, it was kind of like in that ballpark. Didn't even cross my mind. Given the recent episodes in terms of how they've been directing things with the kind of like past technology that was like kind of long forgotten, it's really cool to have him fight off against a giant mech, because that's pretty badass. And I love the fact that, whenever it focused more on the top of the bot, it almost looked like a penguin or like some sort of bird. But shit, man, as I was laughing, it would then launch a giant ass laser beam, or it'd have a laser saw sword. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry for laughing. Like, sometimes the goofiest looking, like, mech faces end up being the most devastating. Like, it was literally burning itself alive. I actually thought, though, what was going to happen was we were going to see Leo, like, one-shot a bunch of these bots after it kind of called in the artillery there. And then, in return, we just see our Demon Queen here just launching non-stop fireballs, hellfire, laser beams of death. And just to see the other generals being like, should we stop her? No, she's just letting off steam. And it honestly felt that way, because when you're that powerful and you recently, because as far as we know anyway, the last time she fought was against Leo and Leo kicked her ass. So she probably has a lot of pent up anger, and that's something where she has an argument to be made why it's okay to destroy the surrounding area because there's these giant walking abominations. Yeah, she's probably earned that kind of sigh of relief, because even though she seems to have the most composure out of the generals and her, she probably needed to let loose a little bit, and, drinking can only go so far. Though they definitely hinted at her wanting to talk about something serious with Leo. I'm not going to assume it's the conversation that, like, she knows who he is, but at the same time, I'm not totally sure on that, because I know the conversation has to happen, or at the very least, I'm feeling like the conversation will happen before this season wraps up. However, I'm not sure if they're going to go the direction of her realizing it before he drops the information himself. Given that he's now helped all of the generals and clearly has 4 very strong voices who very much more believe than suspect him, even though they don't quite understand why he would work for a side that, is opposing the side that he still wants to protect. I think there's more arguments to be made why he's still trustworthy, right? Because they even admit in this episode, if his goal was to destroy us, he could single-handedly do that. So there's no reason for him to help us get better at our jobs and rebuild us, right? So it's going to be very fun. If it does turn out that she's realized who he is sooner than him revealing it himself, wouldn't be opposed in the slightest, but I almost feel like they're going to curve us somehow. Like, we're going to assume that's what's going to happen, and then, if you watch after the credits, right, they always have those ominous teases. There's going to be something else that's going to shake the entire thing for a loop, right? Who knows? All I can say is that this show has been a very pleasant surprise. It's something that I honestly eagerly anticipate more as I watch, and now that seemingly the main formula that we've been building off of since this kind of started off, which was help all the generals and help her herself, seemingly the formula will probably change a bit now, because now it's not just, okay, 1 episode for each of them. Where are we going now? Are we going to go for the Philosopher's Stone? Are we going to go on a different adventure? Or does she have an own mission, or does she have a desire for help in terms of how he's helped the different generals? Don't know, but excited to see nonetheless. Good episode for sure. I mean, last week's going to be hard to top for a while, but this was honestly everything I was hoping for, and they even surprised me with the mech battle, so I'm a happy camper. Thoughts, if you have any, though, down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.